over 50 women had lost their lives. What do you do when 10,000 women come together to protest? 10,000 of them saying enough is enough. Today we're going to be going to Southeast Nigeria, where women, market women, grandmothers, mothers, women from all walks of life came together to take down the British Empire. Today we're going to be talking about the Aba Women's War of 1929. It all started with one question. How many goats do you have? That's it. How many goats do you have? I don't think they realized how loaded that question was and how much trouble it was about to bring them. To Madam Yeruwa, a widow living in Iloko, it wasn't just a question about livestock. This was a threat. You see, she understood what it meant when the British colonial officer's assistant came knocking, counting animals, people, households. It was taxation. And for women who were already carrying the burden of household management, farming, and even paying the taxes for their husbands and families, this felt like one injustice too many. The man's name was Mark Emerewa, and when he ordered Madame to count her possessions, she refused. The argument escalated. Words were exchanged. He grabbed her by the throat, and that, as we say, was the match that lit the fire. She wasn't just any woman. She was a woman that was well respected. When she told her story at the market square that day, everyone listened. And the women there decided to do something different. They decided it was time to act. In the world of Igbo and Ibibio women, action didn't mean silence. It meant solidarity. They began to send out palm fronds, symbols of protest, calling women from nearby towns like Umuahia, Ngwa, and across the Bende district. And they came, not in hundreds, but in thousands. More than 10,000 women gathered in Oloko. But this wasn't chaos. This was organized resistance. They used a tactic called sitting on a man, a form of protest where women would surround a man's compound, sing, dance, mock, and shame him until he either changed his ways or stepped down. One of their targets was Warrant Chief Ukogu. They demanded his resignation and called for a trial. And this was only the beginning. Colonialism didn't just bring about foreign policies and laws. It also disrupted the gender roles within society that gave women political power. Women felt like their political voices were being stripped away from them, and they were not happy about this. Before the British arrived, Igbo women could participate in village councils. They could challenge male leaders, and they were custodians of morality and held economic power. But under colonial rule, the British introduced warrant chiefs, which meant male-dominated leadership handpicked by the British. They ignored traditional women's councils, effectively silencing half the population. To make matters worse, the colonial government introduced direct taxation in 1928, first on men. Then in 1929, rumors spread that women would be next. With inflation already high and trade slowing down due to the global financial crash, women were barely surviving. Now the thought of being taxed for simply existing, it was just the final straw. From November to December of 1929, the protest that started in Oloko spread like wildfire from Owerri to Calabar. The protest became known as Ugu Umwayi in Igbo and Ekong Iban in Ibibio, the Women's War. They sat on corrupt chiefs. They sang songs that ridiculed the colonial policies. They danced. They chanted. They refused to be silent. In many towns, the mere presence of women arriving in their masses was enough to make officials resign in fear. But it wasn't all peaceful. Women also looted colonial factories, destroyed native courts, burned the homes of corrupt warrant chiefs. Over 60 native courts were attacked, some demolished completely. In one town, after 2 women were killed by colonial police, tensions exploded. The British sent in troops to restore order, and by the end of the protests, over 50 women had lost their lives. At the heart of this movement were 3 remarkable women, Ikonia, Nwanedia, and Inugu, known today as the Iloko Trio. They were respected for their intelligence, persuasion, and ability to calm crowds when tensions ran high. And of course, Madame Nwanyeruwa, whose courage sparked the entire movement. She encouraged non-violence and insisted that women will not pay tax until the world ends. The British were shaken. As a result of the Women's War, the British government decided to abolish warrant chiefs in 1930. And for the first time, women were appointed to native courts. Reforms came after that, but most importantly, the message had been loud and clear. Nigerian women would not be silent, and they would not be ignored. The Aba Women's War would go on to influence other movements in the fight for independence in the 1950s and the 1960s. And the strategy of sitting on a man became a template for resistance. It told men and colonial powers that without the respect of women, no society could call itself civilized. So in conclusion, as we can see from this story about the Aba Women's War or the Aba Women's Riots of 1929, we can see that it's not just about taxes, but it's about dignity, voice, and visibility. This story shows us that leadership is not just about somebody screaming in your face about what you should and should not do, or about titles or weapons. Nothing like that. Sometimes it's a collection of voices singing in protest. And sometimes it's about a palm frond being passed from one hand to another, calling women to rise and fight for their rights. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a comment so that I know exactly what you're thinking. Also, share with all your friends and family and like it, and also subscribe if you haven't done so yet. But we had so much fun doing this one, and until next time, as we share another story that connects us closer to our roots.